Hello, everyone. I never thought I'd be here, but I don't know what else to do. I love my wife, but I'm scared she's doing something behind my back. I can't talk to friends or family because it is too embarrassing and messed up. I think my coworker may have slept with my wife, and it looks like it might be true. I am a 36-year-old man, and I met my wife, who is 32, at a mall in our city back in 2014. My wife, let us call her Emily, was in the food court line when I saw her. It's funny because I was actually heading to a different restaurant, but the line was too long. So, I got in line at the place where she was, and when I saw her standing at the front, I couldn't believe how gorgeous she was. When she saw me, she laughed and said she wasn't in line for food. Emily said her cousin worked there, and she was waiting for her to come out. I was thrilled she spoke to me because I couldn't figure out what to say to her. Thanks to that, I was able to break the ice with some humor, and we talked while she waited for her cousin. I could see I was making a good first impression. I asked if she wanted me to buy her some food while she waited, but she asked for a strawberry lemonade instead. After buying it, we talked some more, and I kept being flirtatious and funny with her. When her cousin came out, I asked for her number, and she gave it to me before they left. After that, I did everything I could to sweep her off her feet. We went on dates and to events, and our friends hung out together. We made it official that we were dating. In 2017, Emily and I got married. We had 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy, with our son being the middle child. We became great parents, though it wasn't easy. We gave up always going out to clubs and concerts, but we still found time to have fun here and there. Our nightlife was definitely cut in half. I was happy to have Emily as my wife and felt very lucky. She had a great personality and was so beautiful that even my friends gave me props. Emily is Cuban and looks like a mix between the actress who played Wonder Woman and Salma Hayek. She is curvaceous, has tattoos on her arms, and always wears her hair in a ponytail. You'd recognize her by her signature ponytail, especially in her selfies. We make good money since I work as a maintenance man. Emily and her sister are interior decorators, and they do well too. Technically, her sister is the interior designer, and Emily joined when it became successful. I love my job and have worked here for 7 years, but I never thought someone here would get to my wife. The trouble started last Wednesday. There's a guy in the shipping area. Let us call him Marcus. We're not really friends, just acquaintances who talk during lunch. The most time I've spent with him was probably when we played dice in the parking lot once. We mostly chat about basketball games during lunch. One weekend, my car had brake problems, so Emily drove me to work and picked me up after. The first time she accidentally came too early and had to wait about 30 minutes. When I came out, I saw her laughing and talking to Marcus and a girl from the office. Let us call her Chloe. I introduced Emily as my wife, and after some small talk, we left. Looking back, I think this is when it all started. Since that week, Emily would come to my job to hang out with Marcus and Chloe in the office, listening to rap music on Marcus' Beats by Dre headphones. Emily said she liked talking to Chloe, and it didn't bother me much to see Marcus with them since Chloe and Marcus were close friends. But now, I realize I should have paid more attention. Emily gets a lot of attention, especially on Instagram, and I always tried to stay composed, even when I saw her talking to Marcus without Chloe around. Jumping to conclusions would only lead to arguments with Emily, often in Spanish, which I wanted to avoid. Last Wednesday, my fears about Emily cheating became more real. As I was leaving work, I said goodbye to a friend who was on the phone. He mentioned my name to the person on the other line, which made me curious because he said it like they knew me. When I asked who he was talking to, he just smiled and said it was an old coworker of ours. He asked me to wait because this person wanted to talk to me really quick. He handed me the phone, and I was actually happy to hear from this guy. It was my old coworker. Let us call him Jason. We caught up since I didn't know why he left. He told me his brother worked in a warehouse in Atlanta, and Jason had moved there because his brother promised him a job. Then, in a playful way, he bragged about how he now makes more money than us. After catching up, Jason asked for my phone number because he wanted to talk about something important. I said sure, and he told me to DM him my number on Facebook. I agreed, and after giving my friend his phone back, I sent Jason my number. He called immediately, even before I made it to my car. When I picked up, I asked him what was up. He asked if I was in the car, and I said yeah. He told me not to drive yet because he had something important to tell me. This sounded strange, so I asked him what he was talking about. He made me promise not to tell anyone, and I agreed. He asked if Emily was still coming to my job, which surprised me. I said yeah, and then he asked if Marcus was still talking to Emily. I said yes, and his question started making me nervous. Jason told me he didn't want to start anything, but he thought Marcus had slept with my wife. Since Jason no longer worked with us, he didn't care about the fallout, but he wanted me to know. Hearing this sent chills down my spine. I asked how he knew, and he said he had seen them together. When Jason worked with us, he was a floor leader who moved between departments. He often saw Emily and Marcus talking and heard Marcus tell co-workers he wanted to sleep with Emily. He would always comment on her butt. I asked when he saw them together, and he said it was almost an hour before lunch. He would sometimes see Emily talking to Chloe, but more often, she was with Marcus. Jason said he didn't suspect anything serious until he saw Emily visit on Saturdays when Marcus' department worked overtime. This surprised me because I rarely worked overtime. It didn't make sense why she would be there. I asked Jason if he was sure she was there on Saturdays, and he insisted he was. He believed Marcus was sleeping with Emily when she visited one Saturday. With not much work to do on a Saturday, they had a lot of free time, and Marcus would have his Beats by Dre speaker playing. Jason said he saw Emily hanging out, which seemed normal, but then he heard loud Spanish music. Looking in, Jason saw things getting sexual. Marcus had Emily by the neck while she twerked for him. My wife wasn't particularly voluptuous, but she could twerk if she wanted to. I froze when Jason told me this. I asked if he was sure, and he said he was absolutely certain. He said everyone watched as she danced, and Marcus even lifted her shirt to show her butt in leggings. I asked if Emily tried to stop Marcus, and he said no. She just laughed and twerked for him while he held her by the neck, like she was trying to win a contest. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jason apologized and told me to keep my wife away from Marcus, including Chloe. I thanked him for telling me and hung up soon after. I felt deeply humiliated. Driving home, my mind was racing. Emily twerking for Marcus had happened 7 or 8 months ago. Who knows what had happened since then? They probably took it to his place and did more than just twerk. I needed to confront Emily and see if she'd be honest. When I got home, my wife was on the phone with her mom. After some small talk, I asked if she met with Chloe today. She said yes. I asked if she saw Marcus as well, and she said no. I expressed my surprise, saying they seemed like the Three Musketeers. She told me Marcus wasn't around much, and it was just her and Chloe, which I knew was total bull. She then walked past me into the kitchen to text her friends. I couldn't believe Emily lied about her relationship with Marcus. Even I noticed how much he was around her, and I was hurt by what seemed obvious. All I could do was watch her make dinner for our kids and feel sad. I was depressed and filled with a mix of rage and tears. I needed proof of what was going on, but it would be difficult since it involved people I worked with. I didn't want to lose my job, and I couldn't use what Jason said as grounds for divorce. It was just twerking, and they would lie about it. Emily could say she was bringing Marcus lunch, and the security guard would let her in. I had to assume my wife cheated on me. She had secretly met up with Marcus and twerked for him 8 months ago. Who knows what happened since then? I need to find actual proof to use in a divorce if my suspicions are true. I must be careful because I don't want to lose my job, and her family will attack me without evidence. I'll update you once I figure out my next steps. To bring everyone up to speed, Emily had to pick me up from work because my car needed new brakes. While waiting for me, she met and befriended Chloe, a girl in the front office, and Daryl, a co-worker in shipping. Whenever I got off work, I'd see them listening to rap music and talking. Emily became good friends with them and started coming to my job on her days off to hang out with them during lunch. A few weeks ago, I got a call from an old co-worker, Jason, that devastated me. He used to work with us and said Daryl might have been involved with my wife. Jason had seen them talking privately, looking flirtatious, about an hour before lunch, which seemed very suspicious. The worst part was when Jason said that on Saturdays, when Daryl and he worked overtime, Emily would visit them. At first, Jason didn't want to say anything, but one Saturday, he saw something that made him speak up after he left the job. He said when he went to the shipping dock, he heard Spanish music playing. Looking in, he saw my wife dancing and twerking for Daryl. Initially, it seemed like they were just playing around, but then it got sexual and aggressive. Emily let Daryl grab her by the neck and lift her shirt to expose her butt. Jason noticed how serious it was getting, especially the way they looked at each other. I tried to make excuses for my wife, asking Jason if he was sure it was her. He confirmed, saying he was certain, because Emily is Cuban, has tattoos on her arms, and always wears a ponytail. Jason said after seeing that, he went home. I was in shock. Not only did my wife twerk on Daryl, but this happened 8 or 9 months ago. Who knows what she's been doing since then? I'm grateful Jason told me, but it feels too late. I wish he had told me sooner, but he didn't want to snitch on Daryl. When I got home, I asked Emily about her friendship with Daryl. She said she talks to him sometimes, but he isn't around much, and she usually talks to Chloe. I knew this was BS because I saw them together often. Thanks to Jason, I realized she was using her friendship with Chloe as an excuse to see Daryl. After talking to Jason and hearing Emily lie about her and Daryl, I started snooping around the house. I couldn't get into her iPhone because it had a hard passcode, and she was always on it, gossiping with her mom and sister daily. Instead, I eavesdropped on her conversations, especially the late-night ones. She'd go on the back porch to talk, and I'd listen from the side door. I could tell she was probably talking to Daryl. I'd hear her say things like, "Stop, you're crazy," or mention having fun at a club in the suburbs. I even heard her say, "I can go over there," which I assumed meant his house, but I couldn't be sure just from one side of the conversation. When she came back inside, I asked who she was talking to, and she said her sister Chloe or someone else. All the giggling and whispering told me it was BS. After Jason's call, I noticed nothing but red flags. She never put her phone down, barely talked to me, and said she was too busy. When I wanted to sleep with her, she laughed and said she didn't want to with the kids in the house. When I asked when that had ever stopped us, she told me to leave her alone and called me crazy, saying she wasn't in the mood. All this stuff before and after Jason's call made it clear my wife hadn't been faithful. How did I ever think this was normal? Last Saturday, I think I caused her to miss a chance to be with Daryl, and she was pissed. After work, Emily called me while I was driving home. She said she planned to go out again and that I needed to cook for the kids. I immediately assumed she was trying to meet with Daryl and lied, saying I had errands to run before coming home. She said she was already getting ready to leave, and I told her to have her sister watch the kids, knowing she couldn't eat. After trying to guilt me into making her stay home, I told Emily I am allowed to go out and do things too, and might not be back until later. Emily said whatever and hung up on me. Later that night, she had an attitude, and when I said just 2 words to her, she blew up on me. She said I ruined her night, and I told her I didn't care. I said running errands was more important than her just hanging out. Emily snapped back, saying I never mentioned errands, and I retorted that she didn't say anything about going out. When I asked who she was hanging out with, she just told me to forget it. After getting out of the shower, I noticed her outside on the porch, talking on her phone. She looked irritated, so I figured she was talking about me. However, things took a turn for the worse a couple of days ago. After I got off work, Emily cooked dinner. She came into the bedroom where I was browsing new Jordans on my phone and told me dinner was ready. When I entered the dining room, she was all dressed up, getting ready to leave. I asked where she was going, and she said she was going out with friends and that I had to watch the kids. I asked who she was going out with, and Emily just said her friends again. I told her she couldn't just leave, and she accused me of trying to control her. Then she walked out the door with an attitude. I was furious because I knew this was about the Saturday when she couldn't see Daryl, and she'd been upset ever since. My wife didn't come back until around 2:30 in the morning. The whole night I was texting her, and her only reply was, "Please stop texting me." When she finally came in, I was playing our son's PlayStation. We started arguing. I asked why she came home so late, and she said she was with her friends. I wasn't buying it. I told her I should have been in bed instead of waiting up for her. She said I never complained when she got in late before, and that I was always with her, so that argument didn't work. She cursed me out, saying I was trying to control her, and I called that bull. Our son came out to see what the yelling was about and asked what was wrong. Emily said she wasn't arguing with me anymore and stormed into the bedroom. Seeing the game still on, my son asked if he could play, and I told him just for a little while, then he had to go back to sleep. After agreeing, he started playing, and I wanted to continue arguing with Emily. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me into thinking I was controlling when she was the one coming in late. I tried to stay calm, but my suspicion got the better of me. Coming in at 2 a.m. was disrespectful, especially after how she left. I went into our bedroom to continue the argument, but I stopped mid-sentence at what I saw. My wife was undressing, and she was wearing what looked like a black string as underwear. She seemed surprised to see me because she probably thought I was still with our son. Emily stood there, wearing practically nothing, and shot me a look that said, if I asked her anything, we'd just end up arguing. She grabbed her pajamas and went into the bathroom to change. I was stunned and crushed. I decided I'd be sleeping on the couch because it was too awkward after that. My brain couldn't have processed seeing her in that. She had sexy underwear before, but it had been ages since she wore any. When we go on vacation, she likes to wear bikinis for Instagram, but what she had on was more like something you'd see on WorldStar. I have seen enough to confirm my suspicions. When I came on here, people suggested recording her doing or saying incriminating things, so I ordered a voice-activated recorder. I plan on putting it in her car. I asked a friend if I could use his address for delivery, and he agreed without questions. I'll pick it up when it arrives. The last thing I need is for Emily to see the package and ask questions. I am ready to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Thanks to Jason, my suspicions are validated. I'll try to update, but I need to stop being confrontational and act as normal as possible despite my emotions. The advice I got here has been kind of divided on how to deal with this. Some people said I should gather evidence and use it against her. Others said I should confront her about the red flags. I was trying to figure out what to do, but my wife forced my hand today. And yes, she broke her vows. To bring everyone up to speed, last year Emily had to pick me up from work because my car broke down. While waiting for me, she became friends with Chloe, who works in the office, and Daryl, a coworker. They would talk and listen to rap music while she waited for me. After my car was fixed, Emily would still come by during their lunch when she wasn't working with her sister. Recently, I got a call from my old friend Jason, who used to work with us, saying that Daryl and Emily had been meeting up secretly. He said they were acting very inappropriately with each other, and that she would visit him on Saturdays when they worked overtime. Jason mentioned seeing her twerking for Daryl, and how Daryl lifted her shirt and grabbed her by the neck, making it look like they might have slept together. Because Emily has tattoos, always wears a ponytail, and is Cuban, Jason had no trouble identifying her. He said she would bring Daryl lunch, and they would hang out since there wasn't much work on Saturdays. Since I never work overtime, I was shocked to learn she'd been there. When I got home, I asked Emily about her friendship with Daryl, and she denied having one. This infuriated me because it was a blatant lie, given how everyone saw them together during lunch. After this lie, I started snooping to see what I could find. I know Emily and Chloe are friends, but Daryl was always around too. I noticed many red flags. She would hang out all night and say she was with friends, talk on the phone on the back porch, and spontaneously leave the house without saying where she was going. Eavesdropping on her phone calls, I'd hear her giggling and saying things like, "You are crazy," or "I can come over tonight." When I asked who she was talking to, she'd claim it was her sister, or Chloe. Being at work felt awkward because I didn't realize how nice everyone was to me until now. Thanks to Jason's call, I had a master key of information that Emily and Daryl were unaware of. My biggest regret is that this information is 8 months old, and so much time has passed. I was so focused on work and raising my kids that I missed the signs. Jason showed me I was wearing rose-tinted glasses. Emily used her friendship with Chloe as a cover to see Daryl. In those 8 months, she changed. She became very secretive, only talking to her friends and speaking to me when necessary. She would get dressed up more often, and one night, after hanging out until 2 in the morning, I saw her wearing a black string as underwear. This concerned me because she never wore that type of underwear. She usually wore sexy bikinis on vacation for Instagram pictures. But what she had on was more like something you'd see on WorldStar. Seeing this stopped me in my tracks, and I just walked out of the room without arguing. Thanks to Jason, my world is upside down, and the signs are clear. Before Jason told me anything, I tried not to be the jealous type. Emily is very pretty and gets a lot of attention on Instagram. Her pictures get inappropriate comments and likes, even if they are a year old. It's tough for a jealous person to be with a wife who has thousands of guys following her. I always tried to be understanding, but this situation is real, and I might have ignored it because we were married. I felt it was time to get proof of her infidelity. I bought a voice-activated recorder to gather evidence, and if it proved she was cheating, I would seek a divorce. I rode with Emily to the supermarket, hoping to talk and see if she would treat me better. I thought maybe we could fix our relationship and she'd leave Daryl alone. I told Emily that going out with friends was fine, but as a parent, She had responsibilities to her family. Emily said she was a grown woman and accused me of being controlling. She said she had the right to go out and not be stuck at home or work all the time. I told her I understood she liked to have fun, but it was becoming too spontaneous, and she wasn't telling me where she was going. Emily agreed to be more mindful of me and her family. After that, she actually seemed more considerate of my feelings, and I felt like we could discuss our relationship further. But everything changed when Daryl called a couple of days ago. I wasn't sure how to handle things at first, but today, Emily forced my hand. Earlier this week, Emily told me our kids wanted to watch a Pixar movie with their older cousins on Saturday. She said she was going to take them so they could all enjoy the movie together. I thought it was great because it meant she was spending more time with the kids. When they left a couple of hours later, I got a call from my nephew. He asked if he could come over after the movie to play a certain video game he heard we had. I told him that if Emily was going to bring him back home, he could come over and play. He was excited and said he would ask Emily when she picked him up after the movie. This completely confused me. I thought Emily was watching the movie with them, but he said she was just dropping them off. I had slept in that morning, so I thought I misheard him. But I knew Emily had said she was watching the movie with the kids, and I realized she had lied. It was then that I remembered it was a Saturday, and Jason had mentioned Emily being with Daryl during overtime. Checking the time, I knew the guys would still be there if they were working. I called my wife, but she didn't pick up, which made me even angrier. I called my job and reached the security extension. The lady confirmed the guys were still working. I hung up, furious, and wondered if Emily was really there with Daryl. I got in my car and drove to my job, determined to find out. As I drove, I kept repeating, "Stupid B," for what she was putting me through. I was already in a rage. We had talked about this, and I thought she understood. I wasn't going to let it go this time, especially since she lied to me. If Daryl was with my wife, I didn't care anymore. I pulled into the parking lot and spotted her car immediately. My anger intensified. I walked in and headed to the shipping dock where Daryl worked. When I walked through the double doors, Daryl's crew jumped up, surprised to see me. They had their jackets on, ready to leave, but stopped when they saw me. I didn't see Daryl or Emily, so I knew they had to be in the Trucker S lounge. As I headed there, one of the crew tried to stop me, saying I didn't belong in the building. I warned him to get out of my way, or I'd mess him up. He tried to act tough, but I wasn't playing around. Not wasting any more time, I made my way to the Trucker S lounge. The Trucker S lounge used to be a waiting area for truckers. Now truck drivers had to stay in their trucks until given their paperwork to prevent theft. The room was small, with only 2 broken vending machines. I knew I'd find them there, and hearing Daryl's voice confirmed it. Staying close to the wall, I peeked in and couldn't believe what I saw. Daryl was with my wife in the most disgusting way. He was sitting on a couch with his shirt open, pants and underwear down, holding my wife's head in his lap. He looked like some predator, and my wife was on her knees, completely submissive. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, knowing I'd need evidence. I started recording, capturing at least 7 seconds of them together. Then I burst in screaming, "F you, witch!" Daryl looked shocked, and Emily gave me an annoyed look as if I was the problem. She asked, irritated, "What are you doing here?" I screamed back, "F you, witch! This is how you treat me?" She calmly told me to go away, still holding him in her hand. I cursed at both of them, and Emily just covered her face, saying, "Oh my God." She wasn't embarrassed about being caught. She was embarrassed about how I was acting. I called her every name I could think of, but she just rolled her eyes and begged me to leave. She didn't care that our marriage was over. It seemed like she was just saying, "Oh well," which angered me even more. I asked how she could do this to me after claiming she loved me, and she yelled back, "I don't love you like that, okay?" That almost broke me, and she told me to leave again. I demanded a divorce, and she agreed, saying okay in a frustrated tone. After that, I just left the warehouse, got in my car, and drove home. Once home, I was absolutely livid. I punched the walls and screamed every curse word I knew. I couldn't believe she would do this to me. Emily was now a stranger to me. I was completely done with her lies and betrayal. She still hasn't come back, and I don't even know where she is. I bet she is with her sister, trying to explain the situation. Whatever comes next, I have the undeniable proof of her cheating, and I plan to use it, especially in the divorce. It shows how irresponsible and uncaring she is about our marriage. It sucks to admit, but I should have seen the signs without needing Jason to tell me. Emily only loved what I did for her. She didn't want love, she wanted to be desired. And since Daryl was attractive to her and desired her, she cheated with him. Relationships like this always fail because people like her always revert to their true selves. I bought a voice-activated recorder, but it turns out all I needed was the truth from someone who no longer worked with us. To recap, about a year ago, Emily had to pick me up from work because my car needed repairs. While picking me up for a week, she made friends with Chloe, who worked in the office, and Daryl, who worked on the shipping dock. At first, I didn't mind them hanging out during breaks, but then they started hanging out outside of work. I thought Emily only hung out with Chloe, but I was wrong. I got a call from an old coworker, Jason, saying Emily hung out with Daryl more than Chloe. Not only did Daryl hang out with my wife, but he also told other guys on the dock that he wanted to sleep with Emily. Jason said he saw them together often and noticed they were too close. One day when they worked overtime, he caught Emily twerking for Daryl. I couldn't believe it. I asked Jason if he was sure it was her, and he described Emily perfectly Cuban, tattoos, always wearing a ponytail. After that, I started snooping and saw all the red flags. She was always hanging out without me, constantly on her phone and ignoring me. What Jason said was proving to be true. People here said my wife would slip up, and they were right. It's like Jason gave me a clear path, and all I had to do was wait for the moment to catch her. This happened when Emily said she was going to watch a Pixar movie with our kids and their cousins this past Saturday. My nephew called to say she was just dropping them off and coming back later, which shocked me because I knew she said she was watching the movie with them. After hanging up with him, it didn't take long to figure out where she went. Jason said Emily would visit Daryl at work during overtime. These were the times she'd be twerking for Daryl and spending the end of the shift with him. I drove to my job and walked into the building. Her car was there, so I knew she was with Daryl. I headed to the small Trucker S lounge, knowing I'd find them there. Peeking in, I saw Emily on all fours with Daryl, doing things I never thought I'd see. Grabbing my phone, I recorded about 7 seconds of the evidence. After that, I confronted them with a fury I had never felt before. When I exploded on my wife, it hurt me because she seemed more annoyed about being interrupted than embarrassed. Daryl looked shocked, but Emily asked me to please go away. That really pissed me off. I asked her how she could do this, and she yelled that she didn't love me like that and told me to leave. Hearing that almost made me faint. After that, I had to pick up the pieces and drive home. After my initial rage, I managed to calm down. I knew it was time to accept what had happened and that our marriage was over. She said she didn't love me like that. Then what did she love me as, if at all? It was then that I had to accept the painful reality of who I was to Emily. She was the kind of person who needed to feel entitled if she was going to be married. I spent whatever it took to keep her happy, believing that that's what a good husband should do. She made me feel like I was fortunate to have her, as if she were some kind of trophy. I bought into this because she was initially a good mother, and at first, a good wife. But it became clear that she didn't love me. She just loved the attention and validation I worked hard to provide. Emily was always an attention seeker, a trait that explained her obsession with Snapchat and Instagram. She had a massive following, with 80 of them being men. The comments were even worse. I had to develop a thick skin just to be with her, especially when she posted bikini photos from our trips to Vegas and Jamaica. It was evident she wasn't going to change. Despite having someone who took care of her, she was drawn to Daryl because he treated her like she expected to be treated. Now that it was all over, I had to face the reality and called my siblings to tell them everything. It was something I didn't want to do, but it was necessary. The first person I called was my older brother, Michael. Let us call him Michael. I vented my frustration, cursing as much as I could. Michael asked if I was at home, and after I said yes, he mentioned he'd stop by after making a quick errand. I then called my younger sister and broke the news to her. She gave me a lecture, but said Michael was calling her, and she knew it was about this situation. She promised to check up on me later and hung up. She called back soon after to say Michael was coming to pick me up and that I should go with him. She asked about the kids, and I told her they were at the movies, with Emily supposed to pick them up. She wasn't happy about the kids being with Emily, but given my state of mind, there wasn't much we could do. After hanging up, I tried to drift off to sleep, but Michael's arrival soon jolted me awake. When I opened the door, I saw Michael walking up with a bag in his toolbox. Michael is a formidable presence, having played football in high school and college. With his bald head and beard, he looked like he walked straight out of the military. He gave me a big hug, and though we usually played the tough guy role, I was teary-eyed. Michael knew this was exactly what I needed. After the hug, he told me he bought new locks for the house. He said the last thing I needed was for Emily to come back and take everything. We spent the next hour talking and changing the locks before heading to Michael's house. He and his girlfriend treated me well, trying to cheer me up throughout the weekend. My sister Lisa also came over to talk. After contacting everyone else in the family, I couldn't stop replaying what I had seen. I was hoping to catch Emily in a confession, but the chance to confront her came sooner than expected. The desire for revenge burned inside me, and I wasn't done with this yet. On Sunday, Emily's sister Jennifer called me. Michael initially didn't want me to answer, but I reminded him that my kids were there. After stepping out of the room, I answered the call. Jennifer asked what was going on, saying Emily wouldn't return home but not explaining why. I told her the truth. I'd caught Emily cheating at my job. There was a brief silence before Jennifer started denying it, accusing me of lying about her sister. I let her rant before telling her I would show her the proof. She started to respond, but I angrily hung up and sent her the video. I didn't hear from her for the rest of the day. I spent the remainder of the day trying to relax. On Monday, I went to work to talk to my supervisor about Daryl and Emily. He was surprised and gave me a testimony sheet for my complaint. While I was filling it out, he expressed his sympathy and asked if I was sure about the situation. Annoyed, I said yes and asked if he wanted to see the video. He was astonished and said he didn't need the form anymore. He picked up the phone and called someone, saying he'd forward the video to his email and handle it when the boss visited in a few days. I agreed but told him I wouldn't be coming to work for those days. He was about to suggest that anyway. A couple of days later, Jennifer finally called me back, and her call surprised me. Rewritten story. She said she talked to Emily and wanted me to talk to Emily that night because the kids wanted to come home. I said I did take my kids but didn't want to talk to Emily. There was nothing to discuss. Jennifer insisted that even though Emily messed up, I should be the reasonable one for the sake of the family. Somehow, I felt like the unreasonable one. I told her I wasn't talking to Emily because she cheated with my coworker and embarrassed me at my job. I told Jennifer that Emily had been bringing another man into my house, and I was supposed to act like it never happened. She said that wasn't true, claiming Emily only messed around with Daryl at work or his place. I laughed bitterly and asked how I was supposed to know that. I said for all I knew, she banged Daryl's crew too when she was there. Jennifer got mad and said that wasn't what happened. I asked her what did happen then. That S when she told me everything Emily had confided in her. I wish I hadn't asked. According to Jennifer, when Emily first met Chloe, Daryl was talking to her, and Emily told them she was there to pick me up. While waiting, they all started talking, and whenever she came in, they'd hang out until I finished work. After a while, Emily and Chloe became friends, and Emily enjoyed hanging out with them during lunch. Jennifer said that Daryl started complimenting Emily, especially about her butt. This surprised her, but she liked the attention. One day, Emily told Chloe that she found Daryl attractive, and Chloe told him. After that, he started getting too close and making inappropriate comments. Emily played it off, but secretly enjoyed it. I scoffed and asked why she didn't tell me. Jennifer said Emily didn't want to because she liked how wild he was acting. I asked when it all started, and Jennifer hesitated, but when I threatened to hang up, she finally told me. She said she didn't know exactly when, but it began at a birthday party for Chloe's sister. I knew Chloe's sister always found an excuse to get drunk. Chloe invited Emily, who was surprised to see Daryl there. They hung out and had fun, and Emily admitted to Jennifer that Daryl was trying to get with her. He started dancing with Emily, then asked her to twerk for him. She turned around and started twerking, and it was clear he was enjoying it. Eventually, they started kissing and making out. Jennifer said after that, Emily and Daryl began hanging out more, and things escalated. I asked what she meant by escalated, and Jennifer explained that Emily went to Daryl's apartment with Chloe. Daryl tried to be all over Emily, and she let him. Chloe left them alone, and Daryl made his move. He started going down on Emily, and though she sometimes stopped him, eventually, she stopped resisting and returned the favor. I asked if this happened when my kids were around, and Jennifer assured me it didn't. Everything took place at work or his apartment. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jennifer said Emily told her Daryl just knew what to do, and she loved how wild he was. One day, he pinned her against the couch, and she didn't stop him. It was clear he got what he wanted. Shaking my head, I asked how she could do this to me. Jennifer said Emily found the whole situation exciting because it was wrong. Emily liked how rebellious he was, and wasn't disappointed when he finally had her. Jennifer said Emily thought the neighbors would hear them because Daryl was so eager. I knew what she meant. When I was younger, my brother and I helped our aunt move out of her apartment, and the walls were paper thin. We could hear everything, even action movies from the apartment below. If Daryl S.'s apartment was as cheap as my Aunt S., then everyone could hear what was happening, especially if he was taking her from behind. Jennifer said that whenever Daryl wanted it, he got it, until Jason spoke up. Their little secret was out because Jason turned out to be more of a man than they thought. Jennifer started to continue, but I told her the party and the apartment situation was enough. She asked if I was going to at least be the level-headed one and just talk to Emily, and I said hell no. I told her I'd come over the next day to get the kids, but I had nothing to say to Emily. Jennifer said this wouldn't work if we both acted stubborn, but I told her Emily had made a fool of me, and I wasn't giving her another chance. I told her when I'd be coming to get the kids, and she groaned and hung up in frustration. I felt pretty low that day. I had to crawl my way back up to where I was. A couple of hours later, I got a call from an unknown number. After that, I received a text from a coworker, and it surprised me. I was driving at the time, so I put the call through on my Bluetooth. He asked what was up, and I told him I was just running errands. Then he asked if I had anything to do with Daryl getting fired, which shocked me. He said 2 men and a woman in suits, along with our supervisor, came to the dock and went straight to the back where the Trucker S lounge was. Hearing this, I knew they were checking the lounge to confirm it was the same room in the video. About 20 minutes later, they called Daryl to the office and made him pack up his stuff. I told my coworker the truth, and he said he would have done the same thing. He asked when I was coming back to work, and I said I'd come in on Friday and work half a day. He said cool, and that he'd talk to me later. That night, I felt a bit of relief and made dinner for myself. My main focus now was the divorce. The next day, I had to pick up my kids, and I dreaded it. It had been days since I saw Emily, and my brother Michael made sure to be with me just in case. When I arrived, my kids were happy to see me and said their mother was being mean and ignoring them. I saw Emily in the kitchen on her cell phone, ignoring me. I told the kids to get in the car, and my oldest daughter asked if she could bring her iPad. When I said yes, Emily snapped, saying no because it had to stay with her. I told Emily the iPad wouldn't get lost because I'd have it. She still said no, claiming she bought it, so it stays with her until they come back. My daughter was getting upset, so I told her to wait in the car. I couldn't believe Emily was being this petty. It caused a huge argument, and I didn't hold back this time. I called her a hoe, and she called me a snitch for getting Daryl fired. I reminded her that she claimed she didn't know Daryl that well, and she told me to cry to my mama. She said I was lucky she even looked my way. She said me and Daryl could have fought, and I didn't have to get him fired. I told her I fight for real women, and she doesn't get that luxury. She called me dusty and lame, saying she doesn't love lame guys. Getting angrier, I saw a glass of orange juice and threw it at her, but she dodged it. She threw a fork at my head but missed. We were broken up by Michael, Jennifer, and her friend who was there. Emily kept yelling she didn't need me and was ready to move on. Michael practically dragged me out to the porch. After calming down, I left because I was exhausted and couldn't fight Michael to get back inside. When I got back in the car, I told my daughter her mother took the iPad. She said she didn't care anymore, she just wanted to leave. I couldn't believe what I had gone through, and although I was out of line, it felt good to curse her out. My kids are with me now, and with the new locks on the door, it is going to stay that way. I had to explain to the kids, in a child-friendly way, that their mother and I wouldn't be living together anymore. They were crushed, but understood. My main focus now is on the divorce. The lawyer said the video would help in many arguments. Emily is full of herself, and I hope it was all worth it for her. If she thinks she's going to have a meaningful relationship with Daryl, she is delusional. Daryl, or anyone for that matter, isn't going to stay with her. She is pushing 40 and has a lot of kids, and Daryl isn't looking to be a stepdad. If that is what she thinks, then I know Daryl better than she does. Emily was just another conquest for him. He'll move on to someone else soon enough. I bet it won't even be a year. At least now I can have peace of mind. My main focus will be on my kids and my real family. Maybe even Jennifer if she ever wises up to Emily's nonsense.